Welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. Today's video is going to be absolutely bonkers. Now, the data is in and Zillow has just released their July housing market report, and we're going to dig into that, guys. There are some juicy details that I think it's important for all of us to pay attention to, because what I've been saying is the housing market is collapsing. No one can afford to buy a house, and it's just not sustainable or practical to expect prices to sustain on a nationwide average. They're already going to acknowledge that. And on top of that, guys, 80% of sellers right now are doing forced selling. Think about what I'm saying. 80%. And what that means is everyone is locked out of the housing market. And when sellers can afford to sell again, I believe there's going to be a rush of inventory. And when that happens, you guys, that's going to put more downward pressure on prices. I think America is going to wake up one morning and realize, yeah, the housing market was toxic and unhealthy this entire time. But again, you guys, there are some juicy details that I can't wait to go over with you. So let's jump right in. The name of Zillow's housing market update for July is Sellers Lose Their Advantage. And first of all, isn't that a great start? So I just want to say, Zillow, you're starting to figure things out, okay? I don't know if you can get the trust back from most of the US, but I appreciate your effort. And you guys want to know something crazy real quick? This is really crazy. 75% of people that look for information on housing go to Zillow. They go to Zillow. Anyways, back into the article. I got the date on the bottom, which came out yesterday. Sorry I didn't get up early today, you guys. I am super tired. And by the way, happy Friday. Sellers lose their upper hand. Let's take a look at what Zillow's talking about exactly. And I've highlighted the key parts of this. Now, they're essentially saying that sellers gave up their advantage to buyers in July on a national scale. Now, this marks the first July that the national market has been neutral since 2019. So they're basically saying that the housing market right now, and this is Zillow, this is not me, okay? I'm saying the housing market is falling apart. I'm saying that anyone buying right now, almost everyone buying right now, is putting themselves in an unnecessary burden and an unnecessary risk. What's interesting is going back into here, in each of the past 2 years, the market moved into neutral ground in October. I think that's really important to understand, because one thing I've been trying to hit home is that when we look at the leading indicators and we compare those leading indicators to 2022, we're 2 months ahead. We are 2 months ahead of the distress in the 2022 market. So it makes sense that the housing market's already frozen when it's summer buying season. Normally that happens in October. This goes on. One sign of decreased competition is homes taking longer to sell. And that's another leading indicator I've been asking you guys to watch, which is days on market. You'll notice that Zillow has a much lower days on market than Redfin. More than likely, it's because when someone delists their property and relists it on MLS, it starts that clock over again. But if you're a realtor and you have access to MLS, you can get something called a CDOM, which is the total days on market or the cumulative days on market. So I believe the only thing I can make of that, guys, is that Zillow is not doing the CDOM. They're just looking at the DOM. Inventory continues to accumulate and now stands nearly 25% above last year's level. So we have 25% year-over-year growth. Data providers show different numbers here. It's very interesting. Now, I also highlighted that even though we've had the pretty decent, actually massive inventory growth, we're still roughly 31.5% down from where we were at pre-pandemic. Now, the last thing here, more options for buyers means less intense competition for each home. That's evident in the growing share of home sellers cutting their prices. Listen to this. More than 26% of homes on Zillow received a price cut in July, and that doesn't count June. So there's still maybe houses that are price cut from June. They're only saying in July, a whopping 26% of home sellers had to do that. And that's the highest share of any July since 2018. And that's when that data set began. So it may be a lot worse than 2018. But what does all of this mean? It means the dynamics of the housing market and that pendulum is starting to swing on a nationwide average. Now remember, the housing market is bifurcated. It's still incredibly divided, and if you don't believe me, go to a data set showing Austin and then compare Austin to San Diego. Two totally separate markets doing totally different things, but one thing we all share in common is the prices are way too high and we are inside a housing market bubble. We all share that, almost every single market around the nation. What happens next? And what they're acknowledging here is the typical home, and this is them, this is not me, is just $200 more than what it would take to rent the same kind of property. Now, I'm going to tell you guys right now, I don't believe that at all, and I believe that they're only using the mortgage payment not counting taxes and insurance, which if that is the case, then they are manipulating the readers, because you have to include property taxes and property insurance because you pay them. So acting like people don't pay them, again, you're doing a disservice to the readers. Because in my market, it's about $1,000 more to buy the house that I'm renting. It's actually minimum $1,000 more, so I think they're full of it, but they are saying $200. They're also saying that that shrunk from $257 gap as recently as April. So they're saying that shrunk $47. So what? Lower rates aren't likely to encourage a comparable wave of current homeowners to sell. Now, this is the important thing, guys. Zillow surveys show 80% of recent sellers were influenced by a major life event, such as the change, an actual change in their household size. So meaning someone passed away, someone died, or they have too many kids now and there's no room for them in their house. And more than likely, most of that is a working situation. They don't have a breakdown of why people are so motivated to sell or why people are being forced or rushed to sell. But regardless, you guys, we know 80% of listings right now, they're not just selling their house because they want to. They're selling their house because they have to. We have probably 3 million people on the sidelines right now that would sell their house if interest rates were lower. And if you're one of those people, comment below and let us know. More demand without corresponding increase in supply would mean competition ramping back up, or at least a delay in the usual post-summer cool down. So what they're saying here is it's possible if rates go down even more that will bring buyers back into the market. And instead of the cool down we have at the second half of the year, that may pick up a little bit and then cool down. So that's possible. But the premise there is if rates go down, demand comes back. And so far we know that is not true. Rates have gone down and demand has not come back. The typical home in the US sold for $362,156. Now, obviously, Redfin has a much different number. That's why you have to really triangulate all of this information. And I want to tell you guys, before we end this video, I'm going to teach you how to pull comps from Zillow. Okay, so again, stay tuned for the end of this video because I am going to show you how to pull comps from Zillow so long as you're in a disclosure state. Texas, unfortunately, is a non-disclosure state. Going back into home values, the typical monthly mortgage payment, assuming a 20% down payment, do you guys see what I mean, is $1,900. So they're not including taxes and insurance. That's so foolish because all of the people that purchased prior to quantitative tightening, so like before 2022, those people's lives are turned upside down too, because a lot of them budgeted for property taxes and insurance that are now double what it was when they purchased. At least in my area, that's happening. Florida as well, some places in California. It's crazy. Is up triple digits, 111% since pre-pandemic. So again, if you're buying a house right now, you're taking the hit for all of us. Thank you for doing that. I think it's super unnecessary though, but thank you regardless. Home values climbed month over month in 34 of the 50 largest metro areas in July. Gains were biggest in Providence at 1%, New York at 0.9%, Hartford at 0.9%, Buffalo at 0.9%, and Cleveland at 0.8%. Expect a lot of those to go on the year-over-year price decline list as we get into the second half of the year. That's exactly what we saw in 2022. We saw Buffalo on that list all the time. Again though, second half of the year. Now, home values fell on a monthly basis in 13 metro areas, major metro areas. Leading is actually San Jose. Welcome back, California, down 0.4%. Austin's actually number 2 at 0.4%. And then Phoenix, welcome, down 0.3%. San Francisco, Silicon Valley, not looking good, you guys, down 0.2%. Pittsburgh also down 0.2%. Now, when we look at the year-over-year numbers, prices are up in 44 of the 50 largest metro areas and are down in 4 of the 50 largest metro areas. Now, they're the highest up in San Jose, so it's interesting. So San Jose is up the most year over year, but it's also down the most month over month, and that represents a toxic housing market that's collapsing. Okay, so again, you can't be on both lists, right? There's something wrong with the data, because if we look at just that year over year, one data set, San Jose is in the best position. But when we only look at the month over month data set, San Jose is in the worst situation. That is the exact reason why you have to triangulate data. Because if you don't, you will fall victim to the narrative of the author. As far as homes that are down year over year, New Orleans is actually number 1. That's crazy at 5.3% down year over year. Austin's number 2 again at 4.6%. But when we look at peak, Austin's number 1, by the way. Number 3, another Texas metro, San Antonio down 2.9%, and Birmingham down 0.7%. You guys know I went to Birmingham. and made a video. I want to show you guys a map of the top buyers markets and the top sellers markets as according to Zillow. Left side is the buyers market, the right side is a strong sellers market. You guys can see the East Coast, Northeast Coast is overheated, some places in California as well. But the top buyers market right now, Texas, Florida, basically the Panhandle. Number 1, actually Cape Coral. Number 2, McAllen, Texas. Number 3, New Orleans. Very interesting. Top 3 strongest seller markets is Rochester, New York, Syracuse, New York, and Buffalo, New York. In other words, New York right now is super duper tight, and the only people that could really buy real estate in New York are people that are foolish and have a lot of money. So if that's you, go to New York. Let's dig into rents. Rents is a really big deal. If rents go down, things collapse. There's so many landlords and investors that can only cash flow at the elevated rental prices. So if those rents go down and those landlords are paying elevated property taxes, elevated insurance, elevated interest rates, it just doesn't work anymore. It doesn't pencil out. And those speculators will then sell their house and sell their house for undervalue. At least that's what happened during the GFC. Let's look at rents, you guys. Here's the thing that sucks. Asking rents increased 0.4% month over month in July, all right? Now it's saying that normally this time of year it goes up 0.6, which would demonstrate that it's not going up as much. But when we already went up like double digits for the last 2 years, it doesn't feel like it's slowing down at all. It feels like it's actually speeding up. And the reason it feels like that, guys, is because it is. Rents are now up 3.4% year over year. Rents fell, however, on a monthly basis in only one metro area, and that is Austin. Now, rents are up from a year ago level in 48 of the 50 largest metros. Number 1 being Hartford. Number 2, Cleveland. A lot of investor demand in Cleveland. A lot of investor purchasing in Cleveland. Number 3 sitting at Providence, up 6.7% year over year. Remember, you guys, the new smart word in the housing market is bifurcated. When I told you to look at Austin and San Diego, here's what I meant. Now, as you guys can see, Austin, and I highlighted the peak in green. You guys can see that it's clearly crashing in Austin. It is, some people are like, nah, that's just a correction. Well, I mean, when we look at the 2008 crash, it dwarfs the 2000. In other words, guys, anyone that's saying that Austin's not crashing right now, just depending on why they're saying it, is lying to you. Because any comparison of past price crashing, it's all exceeded. What's going on right now has never happened before in Austin. They have never lost as much value as quickly as they're losing it right now. Austin right now, undeniably crashing and collapsing in home value. But now take a look at San Diego. This is my point. Housing markets are different. You guys got to go hyper local, even into the subdivision. And again, I'm going to show you that here in a minute, but look at San Diego. Now, this is why I talk about 2022 all the time, because San Diego had deflation in 2022. You can see that on that graph with it going down, but it went back up. In other words, you guys, San Diego has been going up since the end of 2022. A lot of metros have, but I also, again, I want to remind you, even though San Diego is strong, look at that month over month decline list, 0.2%. And then let me ask you this question, is why didn't Zillow acknowledge San Diego had price decline? San Diego is much stronger right now versus Austin. Before I show you guys how to do a subdivision analysis using Zillow, I want to bring in one more data set that I still have not ever shared with you guys, which is the listing prices. Now, a lot of people are like, who cares about the listing prices? Who cares about the listing prices? I care about the listing price, and so should you, because the listing price tells us so many things about the property. One of the things is it tells us the intentions of the seller. If the listing price is near or under market value, then the seller is willing to negotiate. If that listing price is way over market value, then more than likely you don't even want to look at the price or negotiate with them. So the listing price is the first step to figuring out if we're getting a good deal. Now, after the listing price, you have to do the analysis on the comparables, and the past comparables will tell us what the homes we're selling for. I believe that this data set shows us and demonstrates to us that all of the other median data point sets have been manipulated. Now, I know beyond a shadow of doubt that they for sure manipulated median sales price when it comes to new homes. We know that because I've been tracking that the whole time, and what they did is they changed all of the pricing buckets to make it appear that new home prices have flatlined. And listen to what I'm saying, okay? So they changed the pricing buckets to make it appear to the public that prices are flatline. But when we go into any subdivision in my neighborhood, you listen to any of these CEOs talk at these new home builders, every one of them is acknowledging prices are going down and they're going down sharply with new homes. So data is manipulated, there is no question about it. But this data set right here, as you guys can see, may not be. Now again, a lot of people want to dismiss this because they can't explain it. But what I want to show you guys is normally when it comes to listing, okay, and I highlighted going all the way back to 2017, the peak listing price always grows. You see that it grew in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. I highlighted those peaks. But we peaked out clearly, guys, in 2022. So what if this entire time the industry and the media was lying to us? What if the entire time I was right? What if we really did peak in 2022 and all that's going on right now is data manipulation and prices have been slowly going down this whole time? That's what it shows us here. Very interesting data set. Now, again, you guys, that's until they manipulate that as well. Let me show you how to run comps on Zillow. So when you go to Zillow, you got to do a couple drop downs. Now, I've highlighted in green what you guys need to do to get to this point. Now, remember, you guys, you can only do this if you're in a disclosure state, but this is something that will empower you. You can see what houses are selling for behind the scenes a little bit. But what you want to do is the first green box is sold. You want to drop that down and you want to switch that to sold. In the middle of the screen on the right where it says more, you want to drop that down and you want to look at comparables for the last 3 years. Now, all the way to the right, I've highlighted where it says sort and newest. And the reason why you want to do that is because you want to categorize the comparables for each year. So you want to add the comparables for 2023 and see what the average price per square foot was. Same thing with 2022 and 2021. Now, after that, you guys, you're going to hit, and I highlighted this in yellow, you're going to hit that draw. You see where it says draw right there? Now, when you hit that, it's going to give you the ability to draw around the subdivision, because when we look at that as is, there's comps all over the place. There's 3,200 comps, too many comps. So you hit that draw and you draw around the subdivision, and this is what it will look like. See that, you guys? Much easier to understand. So I've targeted an individual subdivision. You can see where I highlighted in yellow. I can remove that boundary and go back to that last screen, but I only want to know what's sold in the subdivision for the last 3 years. And you guys see I have 198 results, all categorized by the newest. So again, I'm going to add everything up for 2024. And then once I get to 2023, I'm going to add that up, figure out what the average price per square foot is. And then after that, go to the link in this video's description, and I'm going to print out the subdivision analysis form, and I'm going to do simple math to calculate wedge and to calculate cash flow. And I really hope that you guys understood what I just showed you, and I hope that it brings incredible value to you and your family. Happy Friday. I'm gonna try to get out another evening video today that's gonna be super spicy, but if you're out there investing in real estate, you guys already know I wish you luck, and I hope you win.